Good morning, everyone. How you doing today? Free agency is just around the corner, and given some recent rhetoric from the coaching staff, we need to look at some things with a different set of lenses. I'm talking about the defense, I'm talking about the 3-4 defense, and I'm talking about the possibility of the Seahawks needing to reconsider their asset distribution this offseason based around this idea of running a lot of 3-4 defense in 2022. So, talked about this a little bit before. I streamed with Brandon a little bit on it, but we got to go over it in more minute detail. So, we're going to go through some videos here where we talk about specifically the 3-4 and what we're going to have to do, because if we're really going to do it, it's not enough to just say we're going to do it. You need to get the right personnel to do it well. And that includes a few things that I was not thinking about in prior videos. So if we're really going to pull this off, if we're going to make it successful, which, by the way, I want to stress this. I like the idea of running a hybrid defense. I like the idea of doing a lot of 3-4 stuff. But that's just the idea. The execution could be something completely different. So the way I see it, there are 4 things we need to consider when taking a look at the 3-4 possibilities: nose tackle, defensive end, inside linebacker, which is pretty easy because it's very similar to what you see in a 4-3, and then outside linebacker. So that's a decent chunk to go over, and we're going to have to take a look at some of these positions and see what we have, see what we can go get if we need to. And we're going to start with nose tackle because this is going to be kind of tricky. So when you think about defensive tackles in a 4-3, you usually think about 1 techs and 3 techs. The 1 tech is the run stuffer. The 3 tech is the pass rusher. The 1 tech is just there to eat up blockers. And the 3 tech is there to actually collapse the pocket, get in there, and actually make plays. The 1 tech, his stats usually are not that big. Well, in a 3-4, they actually call the nose tackle in the 3-4 a 0 tech. He is purified, no stats, no accolades. Very few people know about the nose tackle because he doesn't get a lot of tackles, he doesn't get sacks, but he's very important. He eats up blockers. So if we're going to do a successful 3-4, we need a 0 tech nose tackle, and I don't know if we have that right now. Poona Ford is not big enough to be a 0 tech, in my opinion. He's like 5'11", 310, 315, maybe a little more than that. A lot of these guys lie about their weight, but I don't think he's big enough to be a true 0 tech nose tackle in a 3-4 defense. And that's really all we have under contract at defensive tackle right now. We have a couple guys on future contracts, but they haven't really played, or if they played very little. We will probably bring back Al Woods now because I think Al Woods can do nose tackle stuff. He's 330 plus. You might see Brian Monet get involved as a nose tackle as well, but if you're going to bet your nose tackle position on a 34-year-old and a guy like a Brian Monet who's probably going to get about $1 million in free agency this offseason because there's just no market for a guy like that who's done so little, you need more. You almost certainly need more at nose tackle. And let's take a look at some of these potential free agents. There are a handful of names that I think are going to draw some attention. Let's start with the bigger names. At the top, we have Brandon Williams, just turned 33 from the Baltimore Ravens. Was on a pretty significant contract in 2021. He made $10.5 million as a run-stuffing nose tackle, which usually the nose tackles don't get the big money. So this gives you an idea of how credible Brandon Williams was as a nose tackle. He, like I said, he just turned 33. He is 335 pounds, and that's how he's listed. He might be more. A lot of these defensive tackles, they don't list themselves at their actual weight for some reason. And you can see that he's made a Pro Bowl in the past. You can see that he's had some pretty solid seasons for the Ravens in the past. He's played defensive end in the 3-4 a little bit as well. He played nose tackle in 2020 and played pretty well. However, the issue with Brandon Williams is this most recent season, PFF really didn't like him. They gave him a grade of sub 50. And obviously PFF, you have to take it with a grain of salt, but the thing that makes my radar go up is that PFF liked Brandon Williams a lot in previous years. In 2020, when he was at the nose tackle, they gave him a good grade. Year before that, when he was playing on the end, they gave him a really good grade, 69 almost. The year he made the Pro Bowl, they gave him a grade of 73. So the fact that they were giving him good grades before, and then suddenly last year they started docking him significantly, that tells me they don't just have some inability to properly evaluate what a Brandon Williams does for you. There's something here that fell off. And let's employ heuristics here. He just turned 33. Age is probably catching up to him. So I think it's fair to say that this is not a guy you want to be betting on. So not really into Brandon Williams. The next big name would be Linval Joseph. He's a little older than Brandon Williams, coming off a 14-game season with the Chargers. And he made a lot of money last year too, which, again, you don't see that a lot coming from the nose tackle types. He made $8.5 million in 2021 and is now hitting the market. Probably won't be that expensive because he's so old. And if you take a look at Linval Joseph as a player, he's made a couple of Pro Bowls. He made a couple Pro Bowls back for the Vikings back in 2016, 2017. He's played some in a 4-3. He's played some in a 3-4. He's definitely big enough to be a nose tackle. He's 330, at least 330. And he's had a pretty storied career. He even had a couple years where he was getting some sacks, but that was a long time in the past. If you take a look at the present, he's another player PFF was not huge on in 2021, although they gave him a decent grade. 63 is okay. But in previous years, he got almost a 69 the year before. The year before that, almost over a 71, 72 in 2018. So when you take a look at his age, when you take a look at his career arc, it makes sense that he's about to become a much less relevant player going into 2022. So Linval Joseph is, to me, another kind of stay-away candidate. He's a veteran. He's maybe has a little left in the tank, but I don't think he has enough to go through a whole season. So I'm not a big fan of this one. Now let's talk about some guys who are a little more under the radar, who I'm a little more interested in. First, we have Daquan Jones, who just played a season with the Carolina Panthers. He just turned 30, so age is not a huge problem yet. Daquan Jones, he's listed at 320, which is a little smaller than you want from your nose tackle, I think, but he's done nose tackle work before. He was a nose tackle for Tennessee in 2019 and 2020. He did play in a 4-3 last year for the Panthers in 2021, but he had general success at both positions. He's played in every game since 2015 outside of 4 games in 2017, so he's durable. And PFF, they gave him a pretty good grade for his 4-3 work in 2021, 66. And then when he was a nose tackle in Tennessee, they gave him good grades as well, 67, 70, almost 78. Really good, actually. So Daquan Jones, he's proven that he can play both roles. He can be your 1 tech, he can be your 0 tech. That's also got to be valuable to a team that is trying to run a hybrid, right? If possible, you want guys who can play 1 tech and 0 tech if you're really going to try to run this hybrid. So to me, Daquan Jones is one of the guys that really stands out to me as a good candidate if you're truly going to try to run this hybrid defense. So put him near the top of my personal list. Not going to be expensive either. I'm going to go through a couple other names here as well, but there's got to be some serious red flags on these guys. They're probably going to be cheap, but they're going to be cheap for a reason. First guy is Jonathan Hankins. He's going to turn 30 in a couple months here. Played a season with the Raiders. And the main thing about Hankins is he's big. He's listed at 340. He might be 360, 370. Who knows with these guys. And he hasn't had the greatest career after being a prospect of some note coming out of the draft. He was a mid-second rounder. He's had grinded out a pretty decent career. He's been in the league for, 8-9 years. He did actually have 1 year way back in 2014 where he had 7 sacks. But ever since then, he's mostly been a space-eating defensive tackle. The issue is he's never actually been a nose tackle as near as I can tell, because the defenses that he's played on for the last several years have been 4-3s. So he's been doing some one-tech work. I believe there was one year in Indy where they were running a 3-4 when he was there, but he was playing defensive end. So I don't know if this guy has any real nose tackle experience, and he's been in the league a while. So if you get him to be your zero tech, you are hoping that he can do it solely because how big he is, and that doesn't always work out for you. And PFF, they really didn't like him in 2021. They gave him a grade of a 47. If you go back, it grades a little better in 2020. It's, probably around league average. 2019, little above league average. He's okay. League average-ish in 2018. So this is a guy you could probably get for around veteran minimum, maybe a little bit more just because he's a little bit of a name. But the main draw of Jonathan Hankins would be that he would be relatively cheap. Not that he's particularly good. Not that he's really done the nose tackle thing before. So it just depends on your perspective on that. The next name I want to look at real quick here is Josh Tupuo, another defensive tackle from the Bengals who is a free agent this offseason. This guy's relatively young. He just turned, he's about to turn 38. He's big. He's listed at 345. He missed all of 2020 with an injury. In 2021, he didn't have the greatest performance. PFF didn't love him that much, but in 2019, which was his first full season, he graded out quite well, so there's something here. This is another guy who I don't know if he can do the nose tackle thing. You're kind of betting on his size. Because the Bengals run a kind of a hybrid-y defense, I think. So he can probably do it okay. 57 grade in 2021, not great. You have to go back to 2019, though, and you find that he graded a 74. This was his only full season outside of 2021, where he was coming off a major injury. So Josh Tuopu would be on the list as well, but I'm not crazy about it. Final guy that I want to talk about would be a little bit of a homecoming, Danny Shelton. Going to turn 29 before the season starts, just coming off a season with the Giants. Going to be dirt cheap because Danny Shelton kind of has the rep of a bust at this point, and he definitely didn't live up to the hype, don't get me wrong, but I think this guy has proven in the past that he can contribute. First of all, he is huge. He is listed at 345, just like Hankins. I think he might be bigger. He might be like 360, 370. Wouldn't surprise me. Yes, he is not worthy of being a first-round selection. That did not really work out for anybody involved. But with that kind of size, I feel like you can get something pretty good. And this guy has experience as a nose tackle and as a defensive tackle in a 4-3. So you are, to a certain extent, getting somebody who could be that good fit for your hybrid. Probably a little better than a guy like a Josh Tupuo from Cincinnati. I think he's a fit for the hybrid because he kind of played in a hybrid before with New England when they won a Super Bowl. He had a really good season in 2019 for New England, actually, 61 tackles and 3 sacks. Last couple years, he's kind of been wasting away on some really bad teams. But we know he can do it. We just don't know if he can do it well. PFF hated him in 2021. I'll give him a little bit of a pass. He was playing for the Giants and Joe Judge. Enough said. So 2021, whatever. Playing in Detroit the previous year, 51.1, not good. Not a good season. But if you go back to 2019, last time he was on a good team, a good defense, grade of 72. So he has done well before. Had a grade of 73 for the Patriots team that beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. So he would be pretty cheap. He's got the size. He's got the physical attributes that you're looking for from a nose tackle. So Danny Shelton, to me, has to be a strong consideration for the Seahawks if they really are going to do this hybrid defense that requires a true nose tackle. He and Daquan would probably be my number 1 and number 2 in some order. But that's about it. There are a couple other names here who would be okay, like maybe a Gerald McCoy, but he's barely played football lately, so I'm not really into that. You could probably find a couple other guys, but it's a little thin. Straight up, it's thin. And I'll tell you right now, if you want to get a stud nose tackle, you're probably looking at the draft. But we'll talk about that later. This is how I see the 2022 free agency class for nose tackle shaking out. We're probably going to need to get one of these guys at least. So let me know who you like. Let me know if I missed anybody that you're into. But If you're looking for space eaters who can play that zero tech role, I think that's a pretty comprehensive list. See you guys later.